myself.
I'm not a grandfather, but I imagine this is exactly what it feels like to have your first grandchild. You've watched your first child, aka Bloodborne, grow up, and now they've had their own children, aka the newly announced Switch 2 exclusive Duskbloods, coming from a studio we all know and love, FromSoftware. Today's video is going to be a deep dive into every single secret and every single little detail inside of this first trailer, which, by the way, 3 minutes for a first trailer. I can assure you we're going to be dining very nicely tonight, for there are so many hidden details within this trailer, not to mention overall, it looks amazing. Without any faffing around, let's get into it. Oh, and also grab some prawns on the way. It has not been long at all since this trailer came out, but one thing I keep seeing is Bloodborne 2. Is this Bloodborne 2? No. But kind of. Unfortunately for us Bloodborne fans, it will never be called Bloodborne 2 by FromSoftware. This is due to the fact Sony holds most of the IP when it comes to Bloodborne. As this is a Nintendo property and is an exclusive, there's no reason for Sony to have given the rights to Bloodborne to Nintendo, so technically it's not Bloodborne 2. Yet it very much feels and looks like Bloodborne, and what I believe has happened is FromSoftware's gone, oh, we can't make it in Yharnam, let's just go somewhere else. The funny part is though, there are so many little details that link back to Bloodborne. The first example actually comes in the first scene. A big theme within Bloodborne and within H.P. Lovecraft's work, which heavily inspired Bloodborne, is deep space and deep sea. Basically every single mythical eldritch character is somehow based off either one of those two. Hell, the outer gods reside in space. This first scene is no different. At first glance, this scene is all about this white-haired guy, that he is the centre of attention in this scene, but this isn't true. If you rewatch the scene, you'll notice the true protagonist of this scene is in fact the moon. The moon is in basically every single shot, and in the shots that it's not, its rays of light is shining down all over the room. Another bombshell I want to share with you, specifically to do with these first few scenes, is when she says, oh, I give you my blood, I give you my life, spin a wheel and send into a dream of moonlight. She's not talking to the white guy. Did you notice throughout all these scenes, the moon was constantly behind the hand she was touching? She's talking to the moon, and this is further reinforced when you listen to what she says next. Spin the wheel and send him to a night of moonlight. As she says this, it shows the little blood offering she gave to this moon deity. And coincidentally, it's the shape of a wheel. To me, I'm 100% certain she's talking to the moon, and she's basically asking this moon god to spin a proverbial wheel, aka basically shift time and space and send him somewhere else. I don't believe the wheel is actually a physical thing. Instead, I think it's most likely it's a metaphor. Before she dies, because I'm dead sure that's what happens, she refers to this night of moonlight as humanity's very own dusk. Now, dusk is coming just before night. I believe this whole night of moonlight is going to act similarly to the red moon we see inside of Bloodborne, wherein you get to near the end of the game and night fully descends. I've always really liked the whole progression system we see in Bloodborne, with it starting off being dusk, slowly going into evening, before going into full night. I thought it was a really, really good mechanic, which as the time goes on, the sort of eldritch occurrences increase. I think it's a very underutilised mechanic that FromSoftware is only starting to do with Night Rain in the 3-day cycles, and honestly, I'm so glad they've brought it back, and it further lends credence to the idea that the Bloodborne inspirations keep coming and coming. I also cannot help but think of this offering that is similar to the tonsil stone inside of Bloodborne, where you offer the amygdalas something and they return it by sending you to another dimension. I think the similarities are really uncanny and cannot be overlooked. Before we go any further into the deep dive, I just wanted to say, by the end of the year I'm trying to reach 20,000 subscribers. If and only if you do enjoy, please consider leaving a like and subscribe so we can try and hit this goal. If you don't enjoy, drop a dislike and tell me why, because I love constructive criticism, as it helps me make better content for you. Anyway, let's get back into it. I'm not going to go over every single scene because we're going to be there for ages, and a lot of these scenes are environmental scenes that don't really tell us much, but coincidentally one of the first scenes we see after this first group of scenes is really, really important. We see an electric powered train. Why is this important? Well, it allows us to see sort of what kind of time period we're existing in inside of Duskbloods. Electric powered trains came about in the late 1890s. Coincidentally, if you go and look further into the trailer, only like about a minute later, you'll actually see a proper good view of the gun we see on our main guy's back. You'll notice it is a Morza C96. This gun also came around in the late 1890s. Thank you to my brother for telling me this. I am shit with gun names, but he's absolutely great with them. He's basically a fanatic. I paired the two pictures up together and it's identical. The only difference is the barrel has a golden tint inside of Duskbloods. Using this information, we can conclude that the time period for Duskbloods is post-1890s, which makes a lot of sense considering Bloodborne's time period was the Victorian period, so late 1700s, early 1800s onwards. The fact this game likely takes place in the early 20th century means that fromsoftware can sort of sneakily fit this game into Bloodborne's universe, considering they can basically just go, oh, it's completely different, it's not the same universe. Look, we've got electric powered trains, it's nothing similar. Something similar to this can actually be seen in Dark Souls 1. In the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, there's a neat little reference to Bloodborne with Chester, who's most likely a Bloodborne character inside of Dark Souls. Now this shouldn't have worked because fromsoftware was working with Sony to make Bloodborne, which was an exclusive. Dark Souls was not, it went to all platforms. They had no reason to let fromsoftware do this, and yet fromsoftware did it anyway. So why should this be any different? The next interesting scene comes literally right after the train scene, and it comes in the form of what looks like a cathedral. Now, the cathedral isn't the interesting part, instead it's the stained glass. If you look at the stained glass at the very top, you'll see a blood moon. This looks uncanny to Bloodborne's red moon, blood moon, whatever you want to call it. Now, if we're going off the idea that this is a secret sequel to Bloodborne, then it makes sense there'd be some sort of recognition to the blood moon that happened within our playthrough of Bloodborne. And as we see later in the trailer, people talk fanatically about the moon. They talk about its power. If you look through any important event in history, you'll notice religions sprout up from it, and I don't think this was probably any different. This is all without mentioning the sort of herald we see on this mural. The person, the herald, has these red robes. Now these red robes look really similar to the ones we see at the beginning of the trailer from the woman who gives her life to the moon to allow us to go to this time period / dimension / whatever, because we really can't know at this very moment. This also further proves she was talking to the moon and that she is connected to it, seeing as whatever this cathedral is, it's worshipping the moon, and whether we wanted it or not, we're a part of it now. As we progress, we see this absolute bloody unit that is Scuba Man. He's wielding what looks like a bloody RPG on his shoulder, and as he walks through and glides through the air, because apparently we've got jetpacks now, we see the sky. And to me, this looks like Duskblood's very own version of Dusk, which makes a lot of sense considering it's called Duskblood. Most likely the game is mostly set at dusk. But in fromsoftware fashion, it's not going to be a normal dusk, it's going to be scary dusk, filled with eldritch abominations, atrocities, and tentacle people. In all seriousness, unfortunately, I cannot make the Berserk references that are probably here with this big floating ball. I sort of recognise it from some things I've seen from Berserk, but I'm still in the process of actually going to watch and read Berserk, so I can't really give you much comparisons and ideas to the inspirations and what it means, at least from that angle. I really am sorry about that. If you look at it, you can sort of see what looks like moonlight hitting the back of this circular object. If you then look at this circular object, it's kind of in a fake imitation of a moon. As per FromSoftware trailers, when we actually look at the guy floating next to this ball, he doesn't say anything. It's not until we pan over to some other stuff that it does. The weird floating guy says to contemplate the sweet departure of the moon. While this is being said, a quatrefoil can be seen in the background. If you didn't know, a quatrefoil means a lot of things in a lot of different religions and different cultures. One of the main ones is good luck and rebirth. Now, a big theme in Berserk is rebirth, which can also be seen in this trailer, for we are seeing our character ripping some guy's throat out and sucking in space AIDS gas. We are losing what makes us human. This is a big theme in basically every single one of FromSoftware's games, and I don't think this is any exception. This whole losing yourself to beasthood is a big theme in Bloodborne especially. If you then go back into the trailer, just before we bite the throat off some guy, you'll notice a guy who looks to be of the same faction as us. He has the same sort of golden tinted gun on his back and the weapon at his hip. But his face is deformed, his face is rotten, and in the background, on a mural, is another red-robed figure. While we're on this topic of the guy who seems to be of the same faction as us, I think I noticed something. Why do all their faction wear gold? Well, I believe the gold is a suppressant. It makes sense that if we are somehow contracting some kind of plague, some kind of incoming disease, we'd need a way to try and fight it. And I believe gold is the answer. It's all along our weapons, and the guy we see who's deformed and is quite literally decaying has the gold embedded in his skin. Probably a last-ditch effort to try and combat the disease. But getting back onto topic, I do think there is likely a heavy theme of rebirth and reincarnation inside of Duskbloods. I'm not sure where they're going to go with it, because obviously we've had this theme a lot in previous games. It's basically a staple at this point. But in every single FromSoftware game where it is in, they somehow twist it and make it unique. So whatever direction this is going to go in, I doubt it's going to be bad. The next interesting scene we see is this werewolf man. He says, "I hope you are able, carrier of blood." This further proves there is something going on with us, as we haven't seen more of the game and we don't know the story fully, and there hasn't been more trailers. We can't fully say what that is, but the fact this guy has turned into a fucking werewolf makes me think it has something to do with that. In my eyes, it's most likely that he's been on the track to become this beast, and then he's pulled himself back at the last minute, only to still have that hideous form. Further proof of this comes with the fact that he's wearing no gold, which sort of suggests that he's not trying to contain what we're trying to contain, and what the decaying guy was trying to contain. Now, what does he mean by "I hope you are able"? Well, it comes in the final scene of the trailer. Well, second to last scene. A random guy in pyjamas with a little head cap on says that the moon tears belong to one and only one. Now, this is likely what the whole able part was to do with. This could mean so many things. It could be the key to immortality, like the scales from Sekiro. It could be that to become one with the moon tears is to become God itself. It's really up to your imagination, and I'm really curious to see what you all have to say about it. The actual final scene is of this rat bird thing, and I haven't got much to say about it. The last scene in most of FromSoftware trailers is mostly important, but the only thing I can really think of about this rat is the little earring he has, or it has, or she has, that looks like some sort of moon pendant, perhaps suggesting some sort of connection to the moon and the flying thing earlier in the trailer. And that, everyone, is Duskblood. I am so excited for this game. I'm not very excited to buy a Switch 2 just for this, but I am definitely excited. If you didn't catch, Elden Ring Tarnished Edition is coming to Switch 2, and there's a few differences there. Not enough to make a whole video on, but there certainly is, and if you want to hear me talk about it, then let me know. I'm so excited for Duskblood, which is going to release in 2026. I hope you all are as well. Tell me, what do you think of this? What do you make of it? Do you like the look of the combat? How are you feeling? I'm not going to dilly-dally anymore because I don't want to ramble on anymore, as I seem to do at the end of every video. So please, friends, don't you dare go hollow, and may you find your worth in the waking world. See you in the next one, and goodbye.